When people look at me today, they often see a successful speaker, an author, and someone who travels the world encouraging others. But my story did not begin that way. My story began with questions. From the day I was born without arms and legs, people wondered why. Doctors couldn't explain it. Friends asked questions, strangers stared, and eventually I started asking the same question myself. God, why me? As a child, it was difficult to understand why I was so different from everyone else. I watched other children run across playgrounds, play sports, and do simple things that I could never do in the same way. There were moments when I felt isolated and frustrated. I remember looking at my life and seeing only limitations. I worried about my future. I wondered if I would ever have friends who truly accepted me. I wondered if I would ever find happiness or if I would spend my entire life feeling like I didn't belong. The hardest battles were not physical. The hardest battles happened in my mind. It was easy to believe that my life had less value because of what I lacked. Every negative thought pushed me further into discouragement, yet deep inside there was a small voice telling me not to give up. Slowly, I began learning that God's purpose is not always visible at the beginning of the journey. I started understanding that my worth was not based on my appearance, my abilities, or what other people thought about me. My worth came from the fact that I was created by God. That truth did not instantly remove every struggle, but it gave me something powerful: hope. Faith didn't answer every question I had. Instead, it gave me the strength to keep moving forward even when I didn't understand. Looking back now, I realize that God was preparing me through every challenge. What seemed like a curse at the time would eventually become the very thing that helped me inspire millions of people around the world. There was a period in my life when the pain of being different felt overwhelming. On the outside, people saw a young boy trying to smile and fit in, but on the inside, I was struggling with questions, fears, and deep loneliness. I could not understand why God would allow me to face challenges that seemed impossible. Every day felt like a reminder of what I didn't have. While others could do simple things without thinking, I had to find different ways to accomplish even basic tasks. The emotional pain was often greater than the physical challenges. Being stared at, laughed at, or misunderstood left scars that were difficult to heal. There were times when I felt invisible, as if no one truly understood what I was going through. I worried about my future constantly. Would I ever have a career? Would I ever get married? Would I ever live a meaningful life? The uncertainty filled my mind with fear. At one point, I became so discouraged that I started believing the lie that my life would never get better. When a person loses hope, even small problems can seem impossible to overcome. I felt trapped by circumstances that I could not change. But in the middle of that darkness, God began teaching me an important lesson. My future was not determined by my current situation. Through prayer, faith, and the support of people who cared about me, I slowly began to see life differently. I realized that God had not abandoned me. Even when I couldn't see his plan, he was still working. My circumstances remained the same, but my perspective started to change. Instead of focusing only on what I lacked, I began looking at the possibilities that still existed. That change didn't happen overnight. It was a journey of faith, one step at a time. But the moment I chose hope over despair, everything started moving in a new direction. I discovered that courage is not the absence of fear. It is trusting God enough to keep going despite it. As I continued growing in faith, I began to notice something unexpected. The very condition I had spent years wishing would disappear was becoming the foundation of a greater purpose. For so long I had focused on what I could not do. I compared myself to others and measured my life by my limitations. But God started showing me that my story was not about what I lacked. It was about what He could do through me. One day, I was given an opportunity to speak to a small group of people. I was nervous and unsure of myself. I wondered why anyone would want to listen to someone like me. I didn't have a perfect appearance, and I certainly didn't feel extraordinary. Yet I decided to share my experiences honestly. I talked about pain, loneliness, faith, and the struggles I had faced growing up. To my surprise, people connected with my story in a powerful way. After the talk, several people came up to me with tears in their eyes. They told me that my words had encouraged them not to give up. That moment changed everything. For the first time, I realized that my challenges were not meaningless. The struggles I had endured could help someone else find hope. As more opportunities came, I continued speaking in schools, churches, and communities. Everywhere I went, I met people carrying invisible burdens. Some were dealing with fear, others with failure, loss, rejection, or depression. Their situations were different from mine, but the need for hope was the same. I discovered that people were not inspired because I had all the answers. They were inspired because they saw someone choosing faith despite difficulties. That was when I truly understood my purpose. God was using my weakness as a platform to reach others. The obstacles that once made me question my future had become tools for encouraging people around the world. My life was no longer defined by disability. It was defined by purpose, faith, and the belief that God can transform even the hardest struggles into something meaningful. As my journey continued, I began to experience blessings that I once believed were impossible. When I was younger, I often looked at my future with fear. I wondered whether I would ever be accepted, whether I would ever have meaningful relationships, and whether I would ever be able to live a life that truly mattered. There were so many dreams that seemed out of reach, yet God had a way of opening doors that I never could have imagined. One of the greatest lessons I learned was that God's rewards do not always come in the form we expect. Many people think success is measured by money, fame, or recognition. While I was grateful for opportunities to travel and speak to audiences around the world, those were not the greatest blessings in my life. The greatest reward was discovering a deep sense of peace and purpose that no circumstance could take away. As the years passed, I watched God use my story to encourage people from different countries, cultures, and backgrounds. I met individuals who felt hopeless, and I had the privilege of reminding them that their lives still had value. Seeing lives changed through a message of faith became one of the most rewarding experiences I could ever imagine. It showed me that even the most painful chapters of our lives can have meaning when placed in God's hands. Another blessing I never expected was having a family of my own. As a young boy, I often doubted whether anyone would ever truly love and accept me. Those fears seemed very real at the time, yet God blessed me with a loving wife and children, proving once again that His plans were greater than my fears. Every moment with my family became a reminder of His faithfulness. Life did not suddenly become perfect. Challenges still existed and difficult days still came, but faith taught me to see those challenges differently. Instead of viewing them as obstacles, I learned to see them as opportunities to trust God more deeply. Looking back, I can clearly see that every struggle, every disappointment, and every unanswered question was preparing me for blessings that I could never have imagined.